class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott, and I'm going to give you a little talk today about Scott Barry Kaufman, who is the preeminent Columbia University professor, who's the face now of existential humanistic psychology. He wrote the book Transcend, which is about the life and works of Abraham Maslow. He quotes Viktor Frankl. He's an AI guy who really is part of thought, and he's a cognitive psychologist. And he wrote the book, which is How to Overcome a Victim Mindset, Empower Yourself, and Realize Your Full Potential. So he's all about, he runs at Columbia, the Human Potential Movement. You're going to see a little video about his work and humanistic existential psychology in contemporary world we live in.
Welcome to the Masterclass on the Psychology of Human Empowerment. I'm Dr. Brian Lippincott, clinical psychologist and professor at National University.
And today, we are analyzing Scott Barry Kaufman's framework from his book, Rise Above. We are examining a specific psychological trap, the victim mindset. This is an internal, self-reinforcing loop where an individual becomes fixated on past adversity and consistently attributes negative outcomes to external factors. Clinical parameters include blaming external circumstances and chronic rumination, harboring moral superiority while lacking empathy. Importantly, Kaufman shows this mindset is independent of actual trauma. One can experience severe hardship without adopting the defensive posture of a perpetual victim. Moving beyond this complex requires a transition from identifying solely as a survivor toward constructing an active empowerment mindset. Maslow's traditional pyramid suggests a linear progression, implying that one level of needs must be fully satisfied before the next can begin. This hierarchical nature fails to capture the overlapping, non-linear way humans actually experience their needs. Kaufman proposes the sailboat metaphor to better reflect this reality. In this model, growth is a dynamic process of navigation rather than a static climb. The hull of the boat represents our security needs: safety, connection with others, and self-esteem. When foundational needs are neglected, a patient must dedicate all psychological energy to staying afloat, preventing goal achievement. Conversely, the sail represents our growth needs: exploration, love, and purpose. Opening the sail captures the wind of opportunity to navigate unpredictable seas. Self-actualization requires stabilizing the hull so that the sail can be safely deployed in shifting environments. Individuals trapped in a victim mindset often experience the entitlement paradox. They feel worthless and broken, while simultaneously believing their suffering grants them special privileges and exemptions from social rules. This dynamic creates a layer of defensive superiority. The individual uses their history of pain as a shield to avoid accountability. Psychologists use the maladaptive covert narcissism scale to measure the presence of this vulnerable entitlement. This scale tracks features like secret fantasies of recognition and irritation when others overlook your qualities. Specifically, it tests the belief that past hardships justify preferential treatment, like demanding the first lifeboat on a sinking ship. Identifying these markers of vulnerable entitlement is the first step in dismantling the victim complex. Fragile self-esteem acts as a major leak in the hull. Mark Leary's sociometer theory explains self-esteem as an evolutionary gauge that monitors our relational value to ensure social survival. When this gauge is unstable, people experience FOPO, the fear of other people's opinions. This hyper-vigilant scanning for approval prevents authentic connection with others. The clinical antidote to this instability is fierce self-compassion, using self-kindness and a sense of common humanity to stabilize the internal sociometer. Without this stability, individuals may fall into the pleasing trap. In this state of pathological altruism, helping others is driven by an ego-systemic need for self-enhancement, often masking a search for approval. Kaufman introduces the healthy selfishness scale to show that respecting one's own boundaries directly correlates with the capacity for unmanipulative love for others. Maintaining a healthy respect for one's own projects and self-care is a prerequisite for genuine altruism. While helplessness is often the brain's default response to adversity, hopefulness is a capacity that must be learned through intentional action. Lisa Feldman Barrett's model describes the brain as a prediction machine that creates our experience based on prior data. We can reprogram these future expectations by feeding the brain new agentic experiences. One method involves shifting from why questions to what questions. Asking, "What am I feeling?" fosters self-awareness and prevents the toxic rumination associated with "Why is this happening to me?" This shift supports Susan David's emotional agility, the capacity to experience difficult emotions without allowing them to dictate our behavior. Building this agility requires diffusion, gaining distance from one's thoughts, and experiential excess, where uncomfortable emotions are acknowledged rather than avoided. The Think, Act, Be protocol operationalizes this shift by requiring patients to lead with action, breaking the cycle of avoidance even before motivation arrives. By systematically challenging cognitive distortions, the brain unlearns fear and begins to expect growth. High environmental sensitivity, often seen as a liability, can lead to intricate blooming. Like an orchid, these individuals thrive when given the specific, nurtured conditions their biology requires. This sensitivity can be leveraged through the underdog effect, where low expectations from others act as a catalyst for increased performance. Sustaining this performance requires emotional forgiveness. Dr. Fred Luskin frames this practice as a way to sever the physiological stress response to past events, reclaiming the mental energy spent on resentment. Releasing that physiological stress frees up the attentional bandwidth needed to scan the environment. This open awareness is the core trait of what Richard Wiseman identifies as lucky individuals, those who generate their own fortune by noticing chance opportunities. Post-traumatic growth occurs when sensitivity, forgiveness, and the courage to find opportunity converge. The ultimate clinical goal is the development of a quiet ego. This represents a solid, grounded sense of self that operates with a lowered volume to eliminate defensiveness while maintaining stability. The quiet ego is built on 4 pillars: detached awareness, inclusive identity, perspective taking, and a commitment to personal growth. Kaufman suggests that a quiet ego leads to universalism, transcending collective victimhood to connect with common humanity. We see these principles applied in programs like Inversity Solutions, which use these universalist concepts to foster social connection.
Empowerment is an active pursuit. It begins when we stop looking in the rearview mirror and begin captaining our own ship toward the horizon of what we can actually achieve.